I always say that, when you're a startup in hyper growth, every quarter it's a different company and different challenges. You get more people, so it's different people. The company is different position, so you have different challenges. So when we started IntSights, it was about building the product. Then it was about being able to sell it. Then it was about, managing existing customers. And every step of the way, it was something completely different.
Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Just sit back, relax, and learn from the leaders of today. It's a journey. Each one is different, unique, inspiring. Let's get started. This episode is powered by J Ventures, a community-driven VC fund in Silicon Valley in partnership with Leumi, sponsored by Homeward Ventures, Hippo Insurance, Upwest Labs, Synergy Global, Hillel at Stanford, Leap, Birthright Excel, Serona Partners, and in media partnership with CTech. Welcome to another episode of 20-Minute Leaders, another great founder story. Meet Alon Arvatz, the co-founder of IntSights, a startup focused on providing intelligence about adversaries and preventing cyber attacks before they take place. It was sold this year for $350 million to Rapid7. During this time, he took various leadership roles in strategy, product, business, and engineering. He is also involved in social impact, founding Kanfey Kesef, a nonprofit that promotes financial literacy, and lately Step to Tech, that brings a diversity to the high-tech industry. Alon is an active angel investor, investing and advising founders in various sectors. Alon Arvatz, welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Thank you so much for being with me today. How are you?
I'm doing great.
I'm really honored to have you here. Hearing another inspiring founder's journey, a huge pride in the Israel ecosystem. You were a co-founder at IntSights, held a variety of really interesting positions there, and I'm looking forward to hearing sort of your own personal transition. Within the 7 years that you spent there now, today you're a senior director of product management at Rapid7, but within IntSights, you were VP of intelligence and then chief product officer and then chief strategy officer, while also being the general manager of the Israel branch. And so, really fascinating journey that also begins, more on the social side with cybersecurity, working with teenagers in a cyber school and paying back. So I think that there's a lot for us to unpack and talk about, Alon. And I'd like to get started by getting to know you better. So who is Alon in your mind?
Yeah. So I think, something that is very basic, with everything I do and all, my various experience is my passion and love for creation, for creating something new that didn't exist before, like my baby that I'm responsible for bringing him to the world. And that's what, drives me every day when I wake up in the morning, building something new, making it better, contributing to society. This is what, drives me on a regular basis. And it started, in a very young age, when I was in high school, I was looked for, new ventures and new initiatives. And it also, went with me, afterwards, after my military service, when I founded Cyber School, which was a company for cybersecurity training, education. We even did some cyber camps in the summer for teenagers, and later on with IntSights.
And so the combination of cyber and starting the cyber school, what was the motivation there? What led? I know most people that are dealing with cyber, especially after their military service, they're occupied with holding one or more positions in cyber companies, making good amounts of money, and working on products that are a little bit distanced from the human factor it requires to start a cyber school.
Yeah. So actually, cyber school was combining, two very big passions that I had. One is for education. So I've been to education since high school, and also before cyber school, I founded a nonprofit. It's called Wings of Money, for financial literacy for teenagers. So education has always been part of my life. And also cybersecurity, ever since I went to the IDF and I served in 8200 and was involved in all types of cyber operations, I found cyber very exciting. So cyber school was really combining this together into one place and one initiative. But actually, I think, it really, sparked it and led to founding a cyber school is the fact that my co-founder Guy, he was on a trip to northern Israel, and he met a family there. And they asked him, what are you doing in life? So he said, oh, I'm doing cybersecurity. And I said, wow, we wish that our son would also study cybersecurity. And this is the point where we realize that there is a very, very big need in the market and that there is an opportunity. And we can be the ones with our background from cybersecurity, from education, to bring a solution and help teenagers and their parents, get to know cybersecurity.
Beautiful, but your contribution to society wasn't limited to that, because then you went to start Kanfey Kesef as the co-founder and CEO, and then as a board member. That you're actually talking about financial literacy, not cyber literacy.
Right. So the financial literacy actually came from university. So in university, I studied law and accounting, and I also come from accountant's home. So both of my parents are economists and an accountant. And I just felt that the thing that I learned in the first few weeks of accounting in university is something that anyone should know. And I said, I can't believe that I finished like 12 years in school and I've never learned this type of things. So for me, I said, wow, I have to create some organization that would bring this knowledge to teenagers and allow them to, manage their money a lot better, which is a basic skill.
Right. I think that makes a lot of sense. Now, if you had to look back at, both the cyber school and Kanfey Kesef and, sort of group them together as a part of your life, how do you look back on those experiences? What have you gained? How do you react to those experiences today, especially after going through the hectic journey of a startup that ends up being very, very successful, getting acquired for almost $400 million?
Yeah. So I used to say that Kanfey Kesef and Cyber School were my MBA. So think of
Amazing.
me like think of me as the person that had no idea what is business, what is founding a company, how you sell something, how you work with customers. I had no idea. And with Kanfey Kesef and Cyber School, this was for me, a way to jump into the water and get into building something, building a company, building a business. And that is actually what gave me a lot of the confidence and skills to later on found IntSights, which was like a company of a lot bigger scale. But that was, where I got my basics.
Incredible. Okay, so we know the end result of IntSights, and we know that it's very well connected to your background in the military, but also in cyber school, and through an MBA-like experience through both the cyber school and Kanfey Kesef. The founding story of IntSights, and then I'd love to unpack a little bit on your personal journey within this company and what you've learned about yourself as you're progressing into this multinational company that ends up selling for quite a lot of money.
Right. So I think we had an extremely naive beginning for IntSights.
Wow.
So today I work a lot with young entrepreneurs. So I work with them on market analysis, interviewing customers, understanding, the size of the market, the TAM, forming like a go-to-market strategy. We came from a completely naive position. We identified the problem. Back then, consuming intelligence about threats and potential attacks was extremely manual process, hard to consume, never on time. And you wanted to bridge this gap with technology and product that would help you consume that a lot easier. And we just found a team, started developing the product, and started approaching customers. This is what we did. Until one day, someone approached, say, "Hey, why don't you raise capital?" We said, "Oh, that might be a good idea." And he said, "Hey, I can connect you to someone. Okay, let's meet." And we just came for a pitch with no presentation, just like, a proof of concept that we built in our garage and started
Incredible.
talking to Gilot Capital. And they really loved the idea. And this is how it all rolled out. So we came from, a position of extremely, naive people that want to build something great, solve a problem to customers, a big problem, but it wasn't about how to build a startup and how to build a pitch and how you raise capital. It came from very, very like naive and maybe even pure position.
Unbelievable. Paint me the picture that you're sitting in this meeting with Glilot, and you're a group of friends that are understanding this idea, but obviously you're not coming in ready to fundraise and coming with the terms and negotiations, and all of a sudden you find
Yeah,
yourself a great partner, out of the blue. What is that experience like for both you as an individual, but also you as a team?
yeah. So honestly, it was mainly scary,
Yeah.
honestly. So like, think of me as a person, that didn't come from even the high-tech industry, right? Not to
Right.
mention startup and entrepreneurship in the high-tech industry.
By the way, I'm sending
And
this to
suddenly,
Kobe after, so you have to be careful with what you're saying here.
yeah, he probably knows that. But coming to investor, tell him, hey, I want you to give me $2 million. That was for me, unheard of. No way I can do that. And I think that was like the basic feeling. I was really doing it on the tip of my toes, me and my co-founders, step by step, trying to figure out what to do next, what should we say. We started some consulting with people, so we began to understand better how it works. But it was really like on the tip of our toes, a bit scary, how we're going to do it, and that was the feeling.
I love it. So you're embarking on this great journey with great partners, great friends, a great mission, and a great technology. What's happening over these next 7 years? Like looking back, what experiences jump out at you and that you're saying, "Wow, I'll take these with me forever," and these are the stories that I'll tell my grandkids.
Yeah. So there are a lot. I always say that, when you're a startup in hyper growth, every quarter it's a different company and different challenges. You get more people, so it's different people. The company is different position, so you have different challenges. So when we started IntSights, it was about like, building the product. Then it was about being able to sell it. Then it was about, managing existing customers. And every step of the way, it was something completely different. And, for me, it was, all these steps of the way, all these phases, each of them built me and built another layer of my personality. This is how I feel. I
Right.
think, but probably my biggest challenge was when we became a relatively big company, almost 200 employees, and
Wow.
we had over 10 executives, all across the globe, and creating alignment between all these executives and teams, that's been a huge challenge. And we went through like a very long process that I led as chief strategy officer to really create alignment in the strategy across all organization. So the product is developing, the market are marketing, the sales are also pitching to customers, and we work as a well-oiled machine. And I think that in many ways my journey is in a way the story of IntSights,
Hmm.
because in the beginning it was very much about providing like intelligence to our
The
customers,
intelligence, right?
where I saw this VP intelligence. Later on, it was building a holistic product that will also deal with remediation and response, adding additional products, building a R&D that would create high quality products in a regular cadence, etc., etc., etc. And when we grew big, it was about creating clear strategy, alignment between all the different functions in the organization, okay, and also ability to scale our go-to market. And this is where I was also responsible for strategic partnerships.
Right. I think that makes a lot of sense, and the progression that you're describing here, not a natural progression. I can't imagine it was a trivial decision for you to transition from the intelligence to the product to the strategy. What adjustments did you have to make yourself as an entrepreneur, as now an executive in a multi hundreds of people company, as you're changing your personal position and your personal thinking process in your day to day?
Yeah, it's a big challenge, I have to say. I think that the most important tool and the most important tip that I have to give entrepreneurs, and I tell that to young entrepreneurs that I help all the time, trust your judgment. Common sense is your most important tool in your toolbox, right? So be open to change, try to understand the reality, the situation, and then trust your common sense. You're a smart person, right? You know the business best, you know the situation best because you're inside that day and night 24/7, and trust your judgment to make the right decision and go with it. I can tell that for me, I can remember situation, I remember where I stood, who I talked to on the phone, where I had to make like a big decision, and I made it. But in my mind, I was saying to myself, wow, how can you trust yourself to do that? You've never done it before. It's the first time you're tackling this type of decision. How can you trust your judgment? Related to new products, go to market strategy. And what I found in the end, that you know best the situation, the company, the market, trust your common sense.
Incredible. What surprised you about growing from 3, 4, 5 people all the way to 200 people? What surprised you about this journey that if you were to listen, that if you were to think about it, of you back then, you were like, okay, Alon back then didn't realize this is how it works, and now you do.
Yeah, it's a very good question. I think it really goes back to the alignment. Because where you're a young startup, alignment is a non-issue. Everyone sits in the same room. Everyone have this mission in front of them, and they go with it. And they talk all the time, and they always align.
Right.
I think something that really surprised me is the importance of alignment and communication. When you grow big, you have to communicate all the time what you do, why you do it, and create ceremonies to update everyone, about where you're going, where you're taking the product, where you're taking your team, where you think you need to go. And that is the only way to grow. If you don't do that, then suddenly, the company start to split into different directions, and you lose direction.
But
So
I'm
this
guessing
is
also
like,
it's not the same level of communication that you have with your leadership team as with the entire company, right? Because I'm assuming that there's two challenges here. One is to grow the company and now communicate with 200 people, but you also have the issue of you now have 10 executives versus you had maybe 3 or 4
right.
before, and now you have to use that over communication to align the executives who are then need to align the different segments of the company, especially in different time zones around the world.
Exactly. And executives have opinion.
Right.
They're tasked to lead strategy, right? They need to take their team to the right place. We trust them to do that. We empower them to do that, right? So there is an inherent conflict here of, everyone going to the same direction and at the same time have independence and lead their team. So it becomes a lot more complicated when you become big, and there are a lot of very opinionated, talented people, right? That each need to take their functions to the right places. And that is a huge challenge.
If you're looking back at some of the toughest times you've had at IntSights, and I'm sure that there were a bunch of tough times, as with any good entrepreneurial story, where did you derive your personal inspiration from? Who did you turn to? What did you think of when you were really stuck in a rut and you're like, wow, I need help getting out of this?
Yeah. So I think for me, every time I came into this situation, I really hang on to my co-founders. So every time that I felt like, wow, it will be impossible to win the market, right? And be one of the best solutions in the market. I had one of my co-founders telling me story. Hey, I actually met today a customer and he loved us, right? Hey, I actually talked to a customer success manager today and he told me that we made a huge jump in the last 6 months in the product, and he has now confidence that we're going to be number one. So I
Wow.
really hang on to my founders. Every time that one of us, had this situation that was extremely challenging, having like the other person telling me, hey, actually, from my point of view, things are good. I see the light. That
Wow.
really gave me strength, and my co-founders as well. It gave us strength all over our journey.
Did that relationship and that intimacy stay throughout the 7 years? Were you as close in your seventh year as you were in your first year?
Yeah. So I think we're as good friends as we started. Like until today, we hang out together even after work, and we have very, very good relationship. But I can tell you that through the journey, it's ups and downs all the
Yeah.
time. So it's not the same level all the time. And we had our conflicts around recruitment, around strategy, around funding, which investors we want to take, how much we want to raise, when do we want to raise. These big questions created a lot of conflicts. So while we kept good friends, there were ups and downs. I think the secret, for at least for us, was that every time we had a conflict, every time we argued, every time we even screamed at each other, the day later, we all knew we need to continue to make this work. We need to continue
Beautiful.
together because the success of this company depends on us. And the day later, we acted like friends. Even if we screamed at each other like the evening before, the next day, like nothing has happened. We continue to build this company.
Well, Alon, I can only wish for myself that in whatever company I try to build, I remain that close with my co-founders, and I have that same healthy relationship of acknowledging the ups and downs, but knowing that at the end of the day, we're partners and we're gonna get through this. And I love what you said about that somebody always sees the light, and there's it feels like it's almost like a shifting responsibility. Okay, now it's your turn to see the light, and I'm going to be the one who's going to complain, and you're just going to tell me that you see the light, and I can just imagine that roundtable conversation and how inspiring that is. And I really want to thank you for joining me in these 20 minutes. I had a phenomenal time, and it sounds like a really, really cool, fun, and exhilarating journey, obviously ending in a huge upside for everybody, a huge pride for the Israeli ecosystem. So thank you for all the hard work. And I have one last question for you, Alon. If you were to think of a few words that you would use to describe yourself, what words would you choose?
Yeah. Um, so I think the first one would be relentless. You know, I face challenges all the time, but I always continue with my goals, with my targets, and push ahead. Even if I have downs, I always get up and continue. I think that's what's brought me, to the point where I'm in today. On top of that, I would say optimistic. I'm an optimistic guy. I believe that things would work, that the end will be good. And that gives me a lot of drive, and that also empowers people who work with me and people that I lead. So I think that gives me the ability to lead them ahead and give them belief and optimism. And maybe the last one, I would say, I don't know, builder or creator, because this is why I wake up in the morning, to build new things, to create things that didn't exist before, and that is my greatest passion.
Alon, toda raba, raba raba for this time, for these 20 minutes, but for the 7 years, and for what you're doing now with Rapid 7, and even bigger toda for the amazing work that you did with the community, both in the financial literacy and cyber literacy. It's inspiring for me as a young entrepreneur to see that, and to see that you can do both. You can be very successful, be very determined, but also give back, not just with money, but with time and with energy. And so stay safe and stay healthy. And thank you very much.
Thank you. I enjoyed every minute of this conversation.
Thank you. Bye, Alon.